in raising your prices, because all of these apply, and there's probably way more that I could have put on the list. And honestly, this list of 10 came to me pretty quick. Are you a product based business, maybe handmade or importing? I do both. I'm spending my own cash advertising on Facebook and Instagram to help grow my 2 Shopify stores from scratch that I started in 2020. So join me in this diary type podcast where I share real time challenges and wins as things happen day to day in real time, because we often feel less alone in our e-commerce journey when sharing the challenges with someone else. If you're just starting out or growing your small online business, I think you'll find my experiences motivational as I share from my kitchen table in Adelaide, Australia. Brought to you by one of my e-commerce shops, theturtlejournal.com.au. Hey, my name is Rachel. Welcome to Aussie E-commerce Mum, a diary. This is episode number 27 and it's called Reasons to Raise Your Prices. This episode is a bit of a pep talk to myself and maybe to you as well. If you feel like this could be something that could benefit you and your business in your small or startup or handmade or importing product, whatever type e-commerce business. So I'm speaking to small businesses like myself, maybe handmade, maybe importing products. Maybe you sell on a marketplace platform. Maybe you sell on a Shopify website like I do. And we probably all like to be affordable, so that's fine. I'm not saying that we should suddenly raise our prices and cut out a whole segment of our customer base. That's not this episode. This episode is a bit of an encouragement and a bit of a pep talk to maybe consider raising your prices, and a few reasons why I think it's probably a good idea. Because maybe, when's the last time that you even raised your prices, if you can remember? Was it recently or a really long time ago? And then how much has the price of everything else gone up just in the last little while? So I think it's worth considering doing it again for several reasons. And these are the reasons why I want to go through, because sometimes in a small business, and if you're just starting out and you're fairly new, I'm a couple of years into this, I still struggle with my pricing, deciding what my prices should be. And then when I've set my prices, sometimes I feel a bit like that should be the end of it. And coming back to raise them feels wrong. I don't know why it does, but it has a real icky feeling to it. And I think that's really unhelpful. In growing a business, it's so unhelpful. It doesn't do anything for my longevity, my profitability, my brand, anything like that. So all of those things are reasons why I think we should maybe consider raising our prices. So maybe you're a bit in the same boat like me, and you could do with some encouragement in this episode too. I want to give you a quick example is that I removed my free shipping on one of my websites a couple of months ago, one of my e-commerce Shopify stores. I took that option off that, you would get free shipping on your products. It was a store-wide thing, and I've had it for nearly 2 years, and I decided to remove it not long ago. I'm probably going to do a whole episode about that. Or the lesson learned from me having done that is that, since I've done that and removed the free shipping, framework from one of my websites, so I'm obviously not spruiking that I have free shipping anymore or anything like that, is that my conversion rate hasn't suffered a single bit. Like, not a single bit. I haven't had a single email from anybody, a repeat customer or a customer who'd seen my website one day but didn't buy, came back the next day, then noticed suddenly I'm charging for shipping. Not a peep, like no one. I've been really flawed, and it just goes to show that often all of the barriers that we have or the ways that we hold ourselves back are usually in our heads, and they're often not based on any sort of data or any sort of experience. And we kind of scare ourselves out of doing stuff. So I'd encourage you to go ahead and try something regarding to your pricing, because that's what this episode is about. So that's just a little example of how it went for me when I removed free shipping from one of my websites, that it didn't make a single difference to anyone's mood or their thoughts about my business, or if they liked my business or not. My conversion rate hasn't changed, and no one's even emailed me about it. It's a lesson learned that you never know till you do something what will actually happen. So that's what this episode is. I am psyching myself up to raise my prices and giving myself a list of reasons why it's a good idea. And some of these reasons may resonate for you as well. And I would like to encourage you to consider raising your prices too. I've got 10 things. They're quick things. This won't take long. I'll go through them pretty fast. and grab one or two or five or 8 or 10 of them that will help you, I think, and encourage you and give you the confidence and a bit of grit and, backing on yourself to go ahead and raise your prices too. Number one, no one will even notice. As illustrated in my previous example, no one will even notice. We think people pay far more attention to our businesses than they probably do, which is why we need to repeat our messaging and marketing so often, because no one's often paying that much attention. And my previous example is a great example of that, because that even impacted on my prices, which you would think, if anything was going to get your customers up in arms and emailing you angry emails, would be raising prices, and it did not. So number one, no one will even notice. Number two, when was the last time you raised your prices? Like I said, have a real think. I've set my prices, when I started my e-commerce stores 2 years ago. I've probably raised them twice in 2 years. On one of my websites, I raised them fairly recently, so I'm comfortable with that, I think, for now. But maybe the last time you raised your prices was never. Maybe you opened your store, you started your business, and you've stuck at your prices since then. Number three, cost of goods and cost of materials. Surely this applies to all of us. Like, this must be 100% all of us would experience the increase in the cost of our supplies and our materials that go into what we make. Or if you import products, then your importing costs, totally your shipping costs. My shipping costs for importing has gone through the roof. So cost of supplies and your cost of materials. That's point number three, why it's so worth considering raising your prices. Number four, preserving your margin. In episode 2, which is about packaging supplies, I talk a little bit in there about some of my most expensive packaging I was using to package up my lowest margin products. And I didn't like that feeling at all. I felt like my products that had the smallest margin on them, so say $2 profit margin, why was I using my 50-cent packaging or my 50-cent fancy little Hessian bag to package up a product that had the tiniest margin ever? It didn't seem to make any sense to me. So one reason to consider raising your prices is to preserve your margin. And I think looking at packaging supplies is definitely one way of considering that. But this episode is about raising your prices. So I think preserving a margin is important, because I also talk in that episode about how keeping an item stocked on my shelf that has a $2 margin, not a $2 cost or a $2 markup, in the sense of, maybe I make $2 profit from it. It just isn't worth my time to keep it there. I would rather have a margin much higher. So even if that product is 4 times the cost of it from my supplier, so say it was, 25 cents, 50 cents or something, and I've marked it up so there's a $2 margin, that still seems too small to me, even though the multiple is 4 times the cost from my supplier. A 4 times multiple sounds great in theory till you look at the actual money you're making from it, which is $2, say in the case of a sticker I have, or a set of paper or cards that I sell. No, I just don't think it's worth it. I would rather multiply it by a lot more and increase the margin, or not have it anymore. You have to think about the things that you stock and the space they take up on your shelves, the time it takes to package them, and all sorts of stuff. So there's lots of things that go into our pricing. And I'm no expert. I've sort of talked about that in episode 2. I'm pretty new at this as well, and I'm struggling to sort of make sure my prices reflect some sort of profitability for me and my family. But at the very least, point number 4 here is to preserve your margin. That might just be the encouragement you need to consider raising your prices. Number 5, increasing your margin. How about increasing your margin? So not just trying to keep it where it is, but what about increasing it? Sometimes when I raised my prices on a particular product about 6 months ago, and I didn't increase it by a lot, I think I increased it maybe by $2 or $3 per piece. I did that because when I would make a sale, so my little Shopify app would make my little ding noise, and I'd be all excited to get a sale. But if I'd seen a customer purchase this particular product, I actually got I felt a bit of dread, and I felt a bit deflated. And that's because the margin was so small. A little bit like point 4, but in the sense that the margin was small, and I I decided it was small because I got that kind of dread feeling, not excitement. So I decided from there that I actually needed to increase the margin. I wasn't making enough money off of that product to make me excited about selling it. So I increased it. So the margin has been increased. So that's number 5. So number 4 was to preserve your margin is a good reason to increase your prices. But number 5 is to consider increasing your margin so you have a larger margin on your products. Number 6, test and try to see what the market can even bear. We kind of guess and assume or imagine how things will go, but until you actually try it, you don't know. Till you actually give it a try and see what data comes back or how your customers receive it, then it's really just a guessing game, and we shouldn't make global statements off that or decisions until you've tested it and experimented and tried. I'd like to say a couple of things about this point. Number 1 is it does depend a bit, I believe, on where you sell. So testing to try to see what the market bears. In other words, increasing your price and just see how it goes. See if you sell more or less the same. Can depend on where you sell. If you sell on a marketplace, which would include Amazon, Etsy, eBay, there is more competitiveness there in the sense that people shop there for the bargain. Etsy, you could argue, is slightly different, but I just don't know that Etsy is that much different these days to Amazon or eBay than what it used to be when it first, was launched and started. So I would still say it's a competitive marketplace, in which case people shop on price. So of course, testing what the market can bear, if you sell on that sort of platform, may look a little different to if you sell in person or on social media. So testing and trying is still the point though. You should still consider increasing your prices to see what can happen, to see what the market bears where you're selling. But obviously I do want to caveat that by saying that I do think that has a bit to do with where you sell as well. And I'm not blind to the fact that the platform you sell on probably also impacts on how much this point number 6, can really kind of work for you. So maybe you sell on a marketplace. That might make a difference to how much you can increase your prices to see what the market can bear. Maybe you sell in person. You might find you've got more room to increase your margin there to see what the market can bear in person, because maybe you're the only candle person at a craft fair or something. At the same time though, maybe everyone that comes to see you says they make their own candles, in which case they're just, making judgments and calculations on how much you're selling it for and deciding to go home and make their own. So it can swing either way. Or maybe you sell on Shopify like I do and you advertise on social media a lot, in which case maybe you can bear increasing your prices more, and maybe the market there is different and people are willing to pay more, which FYI, I do believe that's probably the case because it's a different platform and people are there with a different intent. It's much more interruption type marketing or discovery marketing, in which case people are shopping in the moment when they discover something or they're looking for something in particular just from the things they've chatted about in groups, and suddenly voila, your product shows up there in front of them on their feed. So I think the market can probably bear more if you sell through like your own website like I do and advertise on social media. But again, it's worth considering all of those different platforms, and this point does, reflect those different platforms. So it is part of all of that. There are nuances involved. But at the end of the day, number 6 is to test and try to see what the market bears. Number 7, everyone else is, oh my goodness, everybody else is raising prices everywhere. Everywhere you turn, prices are going up. And I don't this point is not we should go out and raise our prices through the roof as well just because everybody else is and we want to, rip people off. That's totally not what I'm saying. But I'm saying it's expected. No one is surprised that you will be putting your prices up. Everyone else is doing it for various reasons as well. And no, we don't know what their reasons are, but you know what your reasons are. So it's not a reason to be scared to do it. It's certainly not a reason to discount putting your prices up. It's a reason to maybe consider doing it because number 7, everybody else is. Number 8, affordability, and the word expensive or not expensive is completely subjective. This is a big one. What we consider affordable or expensive or cheap or not expensive or value for money, all of those terms, none of them are quantifiable. They are completely dependent on the person involved. They are dependent on the particular customer who's seeing you that day as to whether they consider you affordable or not affordable, or if they consider you expensive or not expensive. We make these judgments ourselves on our own products when we set prices and margins and find suppliers, but our customers have their own set of criteria for these words. So we shouldn't just assume that our products are quote unquote expensive because we put our prices up, or a reason why we shouldn't put our prices up, because we shouldn't make those judgments on other people's finances or their own affordability and their own lifestyle, because everyone you meet could be earning a very vastly different amount of money, and what you consider affordable, somebody else may consider really expensive, or what you consider affordable, someone else may see as really cheap, and cheap often isn't great. So I'm just saying it's definitely something we shouldn't do, is attach those words to the reasons why we set our prices where they are, because we're making those subjective decisions on other people's behalf. So consider raising your prices. Number 9, the time involved in the logistics of your business. For example, packaging is worth considering. When you have products that are very time heavy or time sucky, like handmade, where you are spending so much of your time on your products, are you even calculating that time into your products? And you probably are to some extent, but are we really doing it accurately, or are we really giving it enough time and money involved in how we set our prices? For example, I make journals. I make them for myself at the moment, but I'm probably going to make them to sell in my store next year. But I'm thinking about the journals and how I'll make them, because they're very time consuming. So I need to pick a size of journal that's easy for the paper to be cut and just fit. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to cut a piece of paper 10 times for each sheet if I can cut it 5 times for each sheet, and all of a sudden I can put together twice as many paper packs as if I'd have 10 cuts per sheet. This is how much, when you go and get something printed at a professional printer and they cut them for you, this is how they charge you, often based on the number of cuts of paper, because that all equals time and labor. So if you hand make products, this is totally your reason to consider increasing your prices if you are handmade, because I rarely calculate all the time involved, and I know I'm not the only one when it comes to handmade business. Hardly anyone in my sphere who makes handmade things who actually prices their time accurately in their products. In fact, I'm going to say zero. I feel like I don't know anyone in my little handmade world that prices their products accurately based on the time involved. And other makers get really critical too, sometimes, of fellow makers as well about their own pricing. Like I said, it's a bit like being at a market and making candles, but then people that come and visit you also make their own candles. So then they have something to say about the price of your candles that they could make cheaper. It's not a nice feeling, and we should really support other makers and support them in their pricing when it involves the time involved, because their success is our success, like 100%. So number 9, are you really considering the time involved in your products and in the logistics of packaging? Like I said, if I'm making a journal, how many times am I cutting those pieces of paper? Number 10, are you profitable? Oh, there's a big question. Yes or no? I've talked about this a little bit because I'm probably not profitable. I've done 2 tax returns now and both of them were not profitable. I think I ended up with a 0 profit one year and $400 the next. So I'm not profitable on the whole. I'm working towards profitability. Hence this episode. This is my little pep talk I hope encourages you too, that we've got to move in a profitable direction. So if you're profitable, that's wonderful. Like, congratulations for sure. That is fantastic. But I'm on the road to profitability. I don't reckon I'm profitable. I probably need to do some financials in, a 3-month block rather than a yearly block. But putting off doing the finances is a pretty easy thing to do. So I haven't got to that in the last couple of months. I probably need to add that to my list. But if you are profitable, are you even building in everything? Are you looking at all the costs of running your business, including like storage, staff, or saving for staff down the track, your own wage, insurance, tax, storage fees? I think I said that one. There's so many costs involved, and we need to consider the whole lot when we're looking at profitability. It's not just the actual product, because what if you want to employ somebody in 2 years' time to help you with social media, or with paid traffic, or with packaging your orders, or with making products, or with sourcing products? Then that's things you want to start building in to afford down the track. So all of that comes into the profitability equation. So that's number 10. That is the number 10 reason why it's important, I think, to consider raising your prices. So reasons to raise your prices 1 to 10. I hope that's given you a little push, a little encouragement. Grab one or two of those, or all of them that make sense for you, that might help you back yourself in raising your prices, because all of these apply, and there's probably way more that I could have put on the list. And honestly, this list of 10 came to me pretty quick, which means there's probably way more as well. And there's so many more reasons, I think, to consider raising our prices than not. So go ahead, give it a thought for yourself, consider raising your own prices for your products, and just see how you go, because I bet you find it doesn't go as badly as what maybe you fear or imagine, and it actually may go brilliantly well, and you'll be really, really happy you did it. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope my diary style podcast has been an encouragement for you as we spent this time together in sharing the real-time challenges and wins of growing a product business. Head to my website, we can join my newsletter, or send me an email. I'd love to hear from you. You can find me at aussieecommercemum.com.au. I'll see you next time. Keep learning.